Hi everybody, it's John back with another model inbox review. This is another aircraft that I wouldn't have thought many people would need any information to know what it is. But for those who don't, it's actually a Hawker Hunter. The variant in front of you is an F Mark 6, which is actually the variant that I'm doing an inbox review on and building. But which kit am I doing? Well, that's quite interesting. The kit I'm actually doing a review on isn't this one. But it is more or less this one. In 2019, Airfix released the F4 variant of the Hawker Hunter. They also released it with two other variants in the box, the F5 and the J34. The F5, I think, was a Belgium... No, sorry, the F5 was the RAF variant. The F4 was an aircraft sent to Belgium. And the J34 was what the Swedish Air Force called the Hunter, the J34. The kit I'm actually doing a review on is this model, the Hawker Hunter F Mark 6. And I've got quite a bit to say about this particular kit, good and bad, unfortunately. Just leave you with a nice image there. This kit was released later in 2019, so the mould is probably around about a year old now. And it does look very nice inside the box, but as I said, I've got a couple of things that I think people need to be made aware of. An interesting image here. This is actually an F Mark 6 Hawker Hunter in service with the Royal Air Force's aerobatic team, the Black Arrows. The Black Arrows were a 12-ship formation display team that utilised the F Mark 6 Hawker Hunter, and I think this is an image of the aircraft that was painted up in this particular colour to reenact the like the anniversary of the Black Arrows being inaugurated. But this particular aircraft is an FGA Mark 9. The Black Arrows did use an FGA Mark 9 variant in the last, I think, 8 months or 10 months of their display service, and they were replaced by the Yellow Jacks that were eventually replaced by the Red Arrows in 1969, I believe, with the Hawker Siddeley Nat. Anyway, we'll just pan the camera down. We'll have a look at this rather enormous box. It is quite a big box. I've just broken my stand, which a lot of people are probably going to think, thank God for that. Because this stand is definitely in need of replacing. Anyway, let's try and bring it back a little bit, because I want to try and bring it into view a little bit better than that. Is that better? No, it's not. There we go, that's a bit better. That's a bit better. The box is massive. The box is actually, it's taller than my hand, width-wise, and it's about as long as my forearm, as you can see there. About as long as my forearm. So the kit is huge. The box is huge. But the model inside is actually quite sizable as well. There's quite a lot of information on the side, warning and adverts. The serial number there on the side of the Airfix logo. God, it's so big you can't see it all. On this side, printed upside down. I don't know why Airfix do this, but they print the one side of the box upside down to the other. You've got the 3 different variants that come with this kit, and the text information on this side, which is also information about the stats, history, and yeah, it's just interesting gumph about the Hunter itself. We'll open the box, we'll have a look, see what we've got inside, because what is inside is actually quite good. And you're probably wondering what it is. I've got negativity about it, but you'll understand in a minute when I tell you. Have a look at those in a minute. Instruction leaflets. The instruction leaflet is A4 size, but it's more like a pamphlet. And there are 2 lithographs inside. We'll have a look at those in a minute. The instructions are typical modern Airfix release. You've got on the front page, you've got information on the construction kit. There's dimensions of the kit in metric, and then you've got information on the kit. It's basically just information about the Hunter itself and the specs on this side, which is quite nice. I like what they've done with this. And then you've got some safety advice and special notes and the Hornby Hobbies logo there, which is quite good. Assembly instructions in different languages. on this side, and then on the bottom you've got the keys required to understand what to do with each part all the way through the build. And then, in typical fashion to a lot of modern day release kits, the kit builds up in 63 stages, with each stage probably having an average of about 5 or 6 parts in it. Some of them only have 1 or 2. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a quick run through of the instruction leaflet, but I'm only going to itemize things that I think are worthy of importance. Right. You got section 1, section 2 and section 3, which is all to do with the pilot seat. Which is interesting. You've got an option with this kit. You've got optional parts C57 and C66. C57 is to be utilised if you want to use like an aftermarket part, like a photo etch set of straps or something like that. But there are sets of straps moulded into part C66 there. You can see that. So it's quite good that Airfix have done this, because it means that if you want to use or make your own pilot straps, the provision is there in this kit, and it's quite good to do that. On the top here you've got the ejection seat handle systems, and these are the pull cords above the pilot's head to eject the pilot. You would also have had one in between your legs on the base of the seat here as well. I'm not sure whether they've actually incorporated that in the kit, but you could also put a little loop of plastic or something, you know, into there and paint it yellow and black yourself. It's not an issue. Parts 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 are all to do with the cockpit bathtub and the wheel well for the nose wheel. You can see there the detail. You can see it's quite evident there. There's quite a lot of detail. I'll have a look at the parts in a minute. There's a decal provided for the instrument panel, but I have had a look at the instrument panel. It looks quite nice, so I might not use that decal. Gun sight there, part C7, that's quite nice, and that's the wheel well for the nose wheel that goes underneath the cockpit bathtub. That's quite interesting. Stage 11 is the fitting of a part that goes on the rear tail section of one of the fuselage halves. You can see that there. And section 12, you're painting the interior of the airframe. 1960s aircraft that served in the RAF and most Western nations tended to be black interiors. They weren't green or silver or light grey. They tended to be black, and the Hunter was no exception. I did a summer camp with the Air Training Corps when I was 15 years old, and a lot of that camp I was utilised working on Hunters, FGA Mark 9s mainly, and T7s that were serving at the RAF at RAF Brawdy in South Wales on the weapons training role, and they were definitely black inside, all of the airframe, the interior, everything. The only part of the aircraft that wasn't black was the air intakes, because the air intakes were matte white inside. They weren't actually matte white, they were gloss white inside. They had shiny finish. So that's just a bit of information there for you guys who want some inside information. Section 13 is to put the rest of the nose wheel well into place, and then you've got the turbine for the front of that Avon engine that goes there, and then the air intakes, and the air intakes go from the inside to the outside. So that's going to be an interesting test fit to get all that together. You can see that there. But that's the finished product, how it lies into place and lines up with the turbine. Now it's interesting because I don't think you're ever going to be able to see that turbine through these air intakes, because the curved arc is too narrow to see all the way through. So I don't really understand why you would put a turbine into a kit. But there you go. But that's another gripe I've got with this model, and I'll explain more about that later. Section 17, 18 and 19 is just to replace a reenactment of the other side from the previous 3 steps. And then in section 20 you're putting the airframe together. There's a couple of holes there you have to remove if you want to put the aircraft on a display stand, which apparently is marked on the instruction leaflet. It's sold separately. Yeah, that would be right. 20 grams of weight required in the nose cone of this aircraft, and they're suggesting you put it behind the cockpit pilot seat. But a good place to put lead weight in this particular kit, I'm guessing, is going to be in this section here between the bulkhead and the wheel well recess. I don't think you're going to be able to see that from underneath the aircraft, and I think that's going to be a nice place to put lead weight. Section 21, 22 and 23 is to build the jet pipe that goes on the back of the Avon engine. You've got an exhaust fan blade there, turbine A9, and then parts 24 and 25 are fitting the tail cone together and putting it onto the airframe at the back. There are separate parts. We'll have a look at those in a minute and I'll explain what the separate parts are, because I think Airfix are going to release another version of this kit very soon. B9 is the main wing and C51 is the tail, the nose cone that goes in place. So nice touch there. And in section 27 you're putting the main wing's lower sections together, and again you've got to open up holes for various ordnance fittings, and then you've got the wheel wells which go into place there as well, and you've got options here for if you want the undercarriage up or down. You put the wheel wells in and then put the upper wing, the lower wings onto the upper wings, or you put the doors into the lower wings and put them straight into the upper wing section there. And C40 is a nose wheel door. Quite easy really. And then section 30 you should have the airframe together near enough, except for the tail planes. Section 31, 32 and 33 is a tail impennage. Quite easy to follow there. And then section 34, 35, 36 and 37 is all to do with the ailerons and the flap assemblies, which are optional position because on the Hunter the flaps and the ailerons on landing ran they ran together. Do you know what I mean? The ailerons dropped as an extended flap during the landing phase, but they also had the movement to adjust roll control. 38, 39, 40 and 41, 42 and 43 is all to do with the main undercarriage oleos and the doors. You can see that there. It's quite a comprehensive kit. There are quite a lot of parts and quite a lot of detail going on here, and again I'll talk about the detail that I think is lacking in this kit, but we'll talk about that later. Sections 44, 45, 46 and 47 are to do with the doors for the main undercarriage oleos on that side, and then 48 and 49 is to do with the undercarriage doors on the other side. And then you've got a picture at the bottom which show you what the undercarriage doors should look like from the front, and that it's quite a nice idea to do this. Airfix, well done for that, because lining those doors up and getting them correct would have been a nightmare otherwise. Interesting feature here, you've got parts 50 and 51, sorry, sections 50 and 51 and 52, which are the main undercarriage wheels, and these are actually weighted. They've got a flat section to the tyres, which is quite nice, but the thing I like about this is that they're separate parts, so you can paint them before you assemble them. Really handy. Section 53 is the nose wheel doors, and then the nose wheel assembly in 54. In section 55 you're putting it into place. Section 56 is to do with the Aiden cannon blisters. These are the blisters that go over the airframe to allow room for the Aiden cannons to be fitted, and they also catch all of the spent ammunition rounds, so they're not flying around in the atmosphere when you're firing your guns. 58, 59 is optional position for the air brake, which is quite nice, and then 60 you've got the drop tanks and pylons. Quite easy to follow there. Instruction leaflet is actually quite big, it's difficult to get into the camera shot. Section 62 you've got the navigation lights, an aerial, pitot tube and another navigation light on that side. And then in section 63 you've got the optional position, 3 separate parts for the transparency. The canopy itself comes either as an enclosed canopy or 2 separate parts to have the canopy in the open position, as you can see there. I could be tempted to put it in the open position because I always quite like showing the interiors on my kits. You've got 3 separate stencil guides for application of the stencils from the decals. You've got one for each variant, which is the Hawker Hunter F6 version A, the F6 version B, which is that side. They're all different stencils. And then you've got the Hunter F6 option C, which I think is the Norwegian version. Sorry, the Dutch Air Force version. And you'll see that in a minute. So that's the stencil guide. That's great. Then you've got these really quite nice lithograms. These are really nice. The first version, this is version A, is a rather special aircraft, because the F6 that was used for the 1958 Battle of Britain display aircraft was based at Waterbeach in England from number 63 Squadron, Royal Air Force. And the markings supplied in the kit is for the aircraft that was used for the display circuit that particular year, for the Battle of Britain display year, which was quite nice. Don't know why, it's 18 years, wasn't it, from the Battle of Britain. Doesn't seem very long after the Battle of Britain now, when you think the Battle of Britain happened 80 years ago now. That shows you the age of the Hunter. It was quite an old design. But these lithographs are superb, and these are a really, really good way of showing how to how to present your colours. Absolutely fantastic. But I would be tempted to build an F6 that was just a bog standard trainer variant. The underside of this particular aircraft is called Speed Silver, which is basically G11 silver. I think there is a better colourway option that you can go for with a different paint for the Speed Silver, but you'll have to look into that because I don't know what it is. The second option from the RAF is the number 4 Flying Training School based at RAF Valley. Now, I'd have seen quite a few of these at Brawley, because quite a few of these Hunters were used by number 2 and number 4 Training School for weapons training, if you like, advanced ground attack training for the Royal Air Force and frontline pilots. And these were light grey underneath. Same colours above, dark sea grey and matte, near enough matte 30. Although they're saying it's matte 163, But the underside of these aircraft is matte 166. I think it's a satin coat, and it's like they were light grey underneath. And you're showing here, it's very interesting because the lithograph is just showing you the lip of the air intake. The lip of the air intake is actually camo pattern colour, but there's a section of the air intake, and I think it's where the part actually joins the airframe, that's gloss white inside. So painting that is going to be really easy. You just paint it before you put the airframes together, which is great. The Dutch Air Force one, I quite like the Dutch Air Force one as well, but the Dutch Air Force one is Speed Silver underneath again. The F6s were supplied to the Belgium and the Dutch Air Force as F6 variants, and they were sold to these air forces ex-RAF stocks, and they weren't 2-digit nominated numbers like the Mark 57s and the 58s that were supplied to other nations in Europe. They were only in service with these air forces, with the Belgium and the Dutch Air Force, for about, I would say, a year and a half before they were updated and resupplied with FGA Mark 9s to do the same role. But the F6s were definitely supplied to Belgium and the Netherlands Air Force. And you've got a colour option here for these as well. And this one's quite nice too. I quite like the look of this. Quite like the look of that indeed. Quite nice. And the lithographs are really, really good. Nice touch, Airfix. Well done for that. So let's put the lithographs into the plans. And then we'll have a look at this decal sheet, which is actually a piece of art. I'm guessing this decal sheet is printed by Cartograph, because I can't think a company would ever produce anything better than that. The decals, they're not too badly raised. They are a little bit raised, but they are quite large. The stencils, they're not hardly raised at all. And I'm going to try and bring some of these stencils into the camera to see if you can read some of this, because you'll be surprised. The numbers you can read. All this is common to all 3 versions. Some information there. Camera's not really picking it up very well, but usually you can read this information. And I'm guessing you can probably read this information on these as well. but they're quite good quality. They're nicely rendered. I like the look of them. The register is fantastic. The Dutch Air Force markings are really nicely rendered as well. And this is something else I quite like about these markings, because these markings are actually produced so that you can put them on the undercarriage doors in the open position, and then you've got the undercarriage doors in the shut position. So you've got separate decals for that. That's really good. You don't have to cut them up yourself, which is really good. And then you've got some more markings there, ejection warning signs, and these flashes that go on the tail fin of the S6 from the Battle of Britain display year aircraft. These are you're supposed to paint the tail fin and the tail planes yellow, and then you put these decals over the top, and I think those decals are going to lie really nice. They really do look nice. I'm very impressed with the decals on this kit. I mean, so far I'm quite impressed with the kit. It does have its advantages, and we'll talk about the disadvantages very, very soon. Let's just have a look at the transparency. Now, I don't want to get the transparency out of the bag, but what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and get this transparency so that the camera can pick it up and have a look at it. Can you see that? That's quite a nice crystal clear transparency, and it's a pretty good shape as well. You've got the set forward section there. I'll tell you what, let's take them out because you can't really see them very well, can you? Let's take them out of here and have a look at them properly. Here we go. These clear parts are really, really nice. There's no abnormalities in them. There's no sinkholes. They're just a really nice piece of work, nicely crafted. The navigation lights are actually frosted, which is correct. The Hunter's navigation lights on the wings were frosted. I do remember that. They weren't clear. They were like bathroom glass. And then you've got a couple of nav lights that go on. I think those go on the undercarriage legs. But these canopy parts, they're really, really nice. I'm very, very impressed with those indeed. Look at the quality on that, it's really nice. So I'm very impressed with that, that's good. And then let's have a look at the rest of the parts. Now there is a part that's come loose in here, and it's quite important to have a look at it, but we'll have a look at it in a minute. The small sprue, I'm not going to go through all the parts, but I do want to show you the quality of the castings on this mould, because the castings are superb. That's the wheel hubs, very, very nice indeed. Some of the wheel well parts there, undercarriage doors. Now, I know this nose wheel doesn't look fantastically detailed, but that is pretty much what a Hunter nose wheel looked like from an FGA Mark 9. Sorry, an F6. The FGA Mark 9 had a different wheel hub. It had a wheel hub that was perforated, but the F6 wasn't. It was a solid wheel, and that is pretty much what it was. The bathtub looks pretty good, quite nicely detailed. I think that will paint up quite nice. The detail on this kit in 48 scale is years ahead of the Revell kit in 32nd scale. It's another league. The quality of the casting is just superb. Main undercarriage oleos there, they're quite nice too. This is what I was talking about with the seats. You've got two different seats, even though it's a single seat aircraft. One without straps for you to use aftermarket parts, and one with straps. And even the one with straps, it looks quite good, doesn't it? I think I'll probably use that. That looks alright to me. Tailplanes, not too much detail on them, although that's pretty much what the Hunter tailplanes look like. The main wings. One of the things I do want to say about the recessed panel lines on this kit is they are very fine. Almost underdone, but they're actually really nicely cast. The main wing itself it looks really, really nice. I'm very impressed with that. And the detailed panel lines, they're recessed, and they're very, very, as you would expect they'd be recessed, but they're very, very nicely rendered. I'm hoping the camera's going to be able to pick that up. It's not really thinking about it. No, it is. It's thinking about it. There's some detail on the top of this fuselage half here, this fuselage section above, just below the spine, and it's really nicely cast. It's very nice indeed. And even the drop tanks, they're quite nicely cast as well. So again, Airfix, well done for that. Not too much going on here. You've got the turbine, it's quite nicely cast, and the exhaust fan, that's not too bad. And then you've got something which is unusual. You've got two different tail cones. Now, the F6 tail cone is this one, because the F6 didn't have a landing chute, but the FGA Mark 9 did. It did have a landing chute, and this is why I think Airfix might be bringing an FGA Mark 9 variant out in the near future, because the parts are here to produce an FGA Mark 9. You would also need different drop tanks, possibly, and the majority of the rest of the ordnance is pretty run-of-the-mill. But the FGA Mark 9 had revised avionics and an uprated engine, and it needed a tail chute because the landing speed of the FGA Mark 9 was slightly higher than the other marks. The air intake parts here, you can see them. This is the bit here that I think you would have to paint gloss white, and then the inside of here you'd have to paint that gloss white before you put all this together. And then also this part here, that mount would be gloss white, and the turbine would be aluminium. Be an aluminium turbine, and this would all be burnt iron at the back here. Fuselage halves there, again, look at them, they're a really nice piece of work, aren't they? They're nicely moulded. The wing roots detail and recess for the air intakes is quite nicely cast. There's not a bit of flash on this kit. There's quite a lot of tabs to remove, but I'm a firm fan of tabs and flash, because I'm not bothered by flash. It just means the parts have been cast properly, which is brilliant. And this kit is very nicely cast. I'm very impressed with the casting on it. This part that's come loose off the sprue is actually the nose cone, and there's a little recessed tab there. There's also something else I want to show you as well. The gun ports for the Aiden cannons on this kit are actually slotted. They're not solid. They're not holed, and theoretically you would have to drill through those at the back to get a really accurate look, but that's pretty good. You know, it's better than a lot of models, even in larger scales, reproduce the gun ports. The Revell gun port is more or less solid. It's a joke, really. The detail on the 32nd scale Revell Hunter is pretty much a joke. But I'm very impressed with the detail of what is here on the Airfix 48 scale Hunter. But there is one thing I do want to say about this kit. This kit isn't cheap. The kit's retail price is around about 36 to 38 quid, depending on what shop you buy it from and what offers you get from it. And it's not a cheap kit to buy. And there are a couple of things that I thought Airfix could have and should have incorporated to put it way above the competition. There should have been a pilot figure. A lot of modelers like using pilot figures, and if you wanted to get a pilot figure for this kit, you'd probably have to look aftermarket for one. And the other thing is, the Hunter actually had a removable ventral gun pack to enable the ground crew to reservice the Aiden cannons in about 10 to 15 minutes. You could reload this aircraft and turn it round in less than half an hour, refuel it, check it, do the standard checks, and rearm it, and also fit the ordnance under the pylons. It was a very fast turnaround kit, and the ventral gun pack is what supplied that for the cannons. It was very, very useful thing. And the original F6 72nd scale kit that Airfix did produce actually had a removable gun pack, and it was produced in the Black Arrows variant. But the later edition release, the FGA Mark 9 variant, didn't have that feature, so it must have been a new tool kit, which is a bit of a shame. And I think a ventral gun pack that was removable and a pilot figure in this kit, and even say if they charged an extra 4 or 5 quid, if they would have put an Avon engine into this kit and have the rear section of the fuselage, as the real Hunter would have been, as removable, this kit would have been absolutely fantastic. But as it is, I think it's quite an expensive kit for what you get in the box, even though what you get in the box is really good. I'm not criticising Airfix's quality, I'm just criticising their value for money and the amount of effort it would have took to put an engine in this kit and say charged an extra 5 or 6 quid for the ventral gun pack as well. I think it would have been worth it, and it would have made this Hunter kit absolutely phenomenal. Anyway, what I want to quickly do now is just go through the Gumph, close this video down. The model we're doing a review on today is the Airfix Hawker Hunter F6, serial number A09185 in Series 9. The original release date was 2019, and the model's scaled in 1/48th scale. There are decals for 3 versions. The first is a Hawker Hunter F6 serving number 63 Squadron RAF Waterbeach in September 1958 as part of the Battle of Britain display aircraft, and the second is a Hawker Hunter F6 serving number 4 Flying Training School based at RAF Valley in Anglesey in Wales during the summer of 1968, and the third is a Hawker Hunter F6 serving number 324 Squadron Royal Netherlands Air Force based at Leeuwarden in the Netherlands in 1964. There are in total 107 parts on 3 grey plastic sprues and 9 parts on 1 clear plastic sprue, totalling 116 parts in total. The kit is quite large. It's about 10 3/4 inches long. It has a span of about 8 1/4 inches, and it should sit about 3 1/4 inches high on its undercarriage. Now, because of the lack of options in 48 scale, I have incorporated all of the other large scale kits in the options and costs. So we'll just run through these. There aren't that many actually. In 1/50th scale, Mirusan produced a Hunter F6, and that retails about £15 to £20, and by all accounts it's not that bad. Nichimo and UPC also reboxed the Mirusan kit. Nichimo was of the Hunter F6, retails for anything between £6.50 and £30, and the UPC kit was of the F Mark 58, the export version for one of the Middle Eastern countries, and that kit retails for £28 to £48. In 48 scale, Academy do an F6 and an FGA Mark 9. This kit has issues and it retails for between £7 and £22. I'll talk about the issues later in the summing up. Aero Club also produce boxings of an F4, an F6, an FGA Mark 9 and a T7. These are multimedia kits with white metal, vac form and injection moulded parts, and they retail for anything between £9.50 and £35. Airfix's F4, F5, F6 and J34 options with a possible FGA Mark 9 possible future release. These kits retail for anything between £32 and £46, although there are some eBay shops that appear to be a bit greedier than others, asking for nearly £60 for this kit. The Limburg kit, which produces a Hawker Hunter, no mark designation, and a Black Arrow Hunter, which would have been an F6, retails for about £10 to £22. Italieri reboxed the Academy kit as an F6, an F9 and an FGA Mark 9, retails for about £15 to £40, and Limburg Nico Misa and Limburg Venezuela produced Hunters, which were rebox Limburg kits, no prices available on either of those two. You can also buy a Hunter in 1/32nd scale. There are 2 companies. The first is Echelon Vacuforms, who produce a single seat boxing and a 2-seat boxing. These incorporate parts made from vac form and white metal parts, and you can build any of the single seat variants from the single seat boxing and any of the 2-seat variants from the 2-seat boxing. These kits retail for the single seat version £26 to £32, and for the 2-seat variant £25 to £30. Revell also produce a 32nd scale Hunter F6, a Hunter FGA Mark 9 and a Mark 58 in a separate boxing, and these kits retail for anything from 12 to 54 quid. Conclusions. Now, this is a nice, well-engineered kit that, if it lives up to the quality level of all of the other newly released kits from Airfix, it should fit together really well as well. It has lovely, finely recessed panel lines and really nicely rendered detail to the wheel wells, the interior cockpit, and the intake ducting for the engines. I am a little disappointed with the cost at £38 when compared to the new tool Phantom 2, which has twice the plastic in the box and costs £10 less. Also, I think Airfix could have included a pilot figure and a detailed removable gun pack. It would have justified the price more and made for a really nice 48 scale Hunter. Aero Club do some really nice conversion sets for virtually any mark of Hunter you can imagine, and they are easy and inexpensive to acquire. Kits worthy of note in 48 scale are the Lindbergh kit, which should be avoided like the plague at all costs. The Academy kit also has serious issues with the cockpit interior and the forward fuselage, which just doesn't look right at all. And this of course leaves the Airfix the best of the bunch at present, unless you want to stretch to the effort of an Aero Club kit. Those are really good. The 32nd scale Revell Hunter, in my opinion, is a nice kit and looks pretty impressive when built up, but it has some work to do in the interior, and the gun ports are solid, which, when you think about it, a kit of this scale, a kit in 32nd scale, that's really poor. Anyway, I hope this video has been of some use. That's the finish of the inbox review. Quite impressed with this kit. If you have any queries, questions, anything really, just pop them in the comments underneath and I'll try and get back to you with any answers if you need them. Thanks for tuning in. I hope all your modelling subjects are running really smooth and everything's going great. And under the present climate outside, let's stay safe, stay indoors best off really, and keep modelling. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye bye for now.